Hi, welcome to the Team Leader's Role in Training. Today, we will discuss the training journey for new hires and the team leader's role in training. First, let's discuss the training journey. So, the training journey consists of four parts: the new hire recruitment, the product specific training, ABA/nesting, and the transition to production handoff. First, let's discuss recruiting. So all applicants undergo a recruiting process. During the recruiting process, they will go through each of these steps. The first step is the application. So all applicants will complete an application online. Then they will be directed to take an assessment. So candidates complete all required assessments such as typing, technical aptitude, language IQ, and more. Then from there, they will actually do a virtual recorded interview. So in this, the candidates record their voice responses to several scenarios for customer-based situations. If they pass the assessment and the virtual recorded interview, they will then be eligible to move into the live interview. So this is essentially a standard old school interview with one of our Transcom recruiters. Once they pass the interview, they will then move into onboarding. So this onboarding team acts as a liaison between recruiting and training and really onboards the new candidate by getting background checks completed and as well as new hire paperwork. And then from there, we have the training partnership. So the recruiting team and training teams work to stay constantly connected for all onboarding to ensure a seamless transition for new hires. Next, let's talk about product-specific training. So once we've hired them, they go into product-specific training. Now, this will vary wildly between clients. So the length, the duration, what is covered will all be different for different clients. So during this time, there are some key responsibilities for the new hires, the trainers, and operations. So for the new hires, really the training service agreement is their main piece of responsibility that outlines their steps in training. So this is signed by all new hires and it sets expectations of performance throughout training. So this tells them what they must make on a test and what they must pass if there's call listening or mock calls in training. It gives them the outline of what's expected of them. Then for the trainers, they're actually responsible for attendance and performance management. So this actually means that they are tracking attendance daily. They're meeting one-on-one with trainees who may have missed time, but they're also looking at performance management for people who may not be performing well on test or people who seem disengaged. The trainer is there to guide them and to facilitate the learning and to ensure that everyone is on the same page and to ensure that everyone really is getting the information that is required to do their jobs. From there, we have operations engagement. It is extremely important that operations begin to formally introduce themselves as soon as possible in training. So the trainers will be responsible for sending TLs and OMs, invites to training class, for just quick 5-minute introductions so that we don't take away from the learning time. However, if you do not receive the invite, please feel free to reach out to trainers and ask them to come in. This is a critical step in ensuring that people are comfortable with everyone on the team. For new hires, anxiety is very high, and this helps to lessen that anxiety. The next step after product-specific training, so if you go through training for 2 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever the length is, you will have to pass the assessments. You may have to pass some mock call certifications. Once you pass that, you then move into ABA or nesting. So You may hear it referred to as A-Bay, which stands for Academy Bay, or you may hear it referred to as nesting, which is a bit more of an old terminology. The period does change with length of the training and depending on the client. So you may see a 1 week A-Bay, or you may see a 2 week A-Bay, or even sometimes a 3 or 4 week A-Bay, depending on the client. During this time, there's some off the phone time where it's not just taking straight phone calls. It's also essentially getting practice and getting more comfortable talking face to face with some additional support. Now, there are some responsibilities for new hires, trainers, and TLs during this A-Bay time. For the new hire, the A-Bay agreement is essentially the same as the training agreement. So this is signed by all new hires, and it really sets the expectations of performance throughout A-Bay. So typically, they will receive milestones that they must achieve throughout their A-Bay experience. So if we have, for instance, a target of 90% CSAT in production, the A-Bay target may be 80 to 85%, depending on the client. And essentially, the A-Bay agreement outlines that the new hire agent should be reaching that 80 or 85% by the time they leave. So the next piece is attendance and performance management. Again, this is very similar to in classroom. It could be a trainer that does this, or it could be a nesting TL that does this. Nesting TLs are essentially team leads that only work with new hires. That's not available on every account, but certain clients do have that. And then essentially they're responsible for ensuring that new hire attendance and performance is documented and that agents are held to account for their performance. So this is one-on-one coaching. This is, call listening and feedback and those sorts of things. And then last, with nesting is nesting certification. Now, with nesting certification, this again will vary from client to client, but all new hires will be required to pass a certification while they're in nesting. Typically, this is done through call listening and call scoring, and that is usually done by the trainers, the team leads, or even quality. So they may listen to a specific number of calls, and that new hire may be required to pass a certain number of calls before they're allowed to continue to the next step. Next, we will talk about the transition to production handoff. So once our new hires passed A-Bay, or once they're reaching the end of their A-Bay period, the trainers or nesting TLs will actually do a formal deliberation and handoff meeting for all new hire advisors. And this is actually done between training and operations. So there will be parties, so team leads and operations managers from operations, and then from training, you may have the training manager, the training supervisor, or even the trainers themselves and nesting TLs. And essentially this meeting is scheduled to deliberate on the people that are in A-Bay. And essentially this is put in place so that we can all come to an agreement that the individuals that we're talking about are capable of moving forward into production based off of their performance in A-Bay. So the first part of this is actually the deliberation. So this determines if their performance is within the margins to be endorsed to production. So all parties have to actually agree on this. We won't talk about it here today, but potentially if they do not pass deliberation, then We will do some remediation for maybe an additional week, and then move that person into production after that. Or depending on the severity, they may no longer continue with Transcom. After the deliberation, then we have the handoff. So everyone that we've decided to move into production, operations will be handed their performance metrics, attendance data for each individual, and then this will actually also include areas of strengths and opportunities that were observed in training and nesting. And this is meant to go to the TL. So this is where the TLs really start to come into play. You can actually see what someone's performance was from training and in nesting. So it helps you better understand the type of person that you're getting on your team. And then from there, welcome to the team, right? So you are also responsible as a team lead to essentially set up a meeting with each new hire and welcome them to their teams during the first few days of production. So this may look like a one-on-one meeting. If you're only getting maybe a couple of people, if you're getting, I would say 10 people, you may want to do this in a group setting where you welcome everyone. And then it's also important to introduce them to the rest of your team, right? So that is for them to, again, be comfortable with who they're speaking to. Now, let's talk about some of the key responsibilities that team leads actually have in training and nesting. First and foremost, your key responsibility is being a friendly face. Introduce yourself early in training. Ask the trainer to allow for time for an introduction if you have your team assignment. Assist with coaching and nesting. So if someone is struggling, offer to assist the trainer or nesting TL. This is not overstepping. This is, if you have someone who is already assigned to your team and you know that they're in nesting, always just check on their performance and ask the nesting TL if they need any additional assistance with just talking to the person, maybe establishing some rapport and offering some additional coaching. And then last but not least is be part of the handoff process. So understand the new hires that are coming to your team, because if you understand what they're struggling with, you can begin to action more quickly, and that improves their speed to proficiency, which is essentially reducing the amount of time it takes for them to hit the targets in production. And why is all of this important? So reducing agent anxiety is number one. Starting a new job can be very, very scary. So familiar and friendly faces help to reduce job anxiety for new employees. Everyone knows what it's like to start a new position. You are currently in a new position if you were in this training. So it's very important to help reduce that anxiety so that people know that they can be comfortable, and people know that it's okay to mess up, and people know that it's okay that if they don't get something right away, that you're going to have their back, and it really just helps to reduce that anxiety. Number two is really focused on the employee or employer rather. So reduce speed to proficiency. New hires and new employees have a better chance to become proficient if they have guidance from TLs as soon as possible. They build trust with you in training if you introduce yourself in training. They continue to build that trust with you in nesting if you introduce yourself in nesting. And then when you get them on your team, if you're developing action plans based off of the observed behaviors in training and nesting, you're then able to help reduce that speed to proficiency because you understand what the root causes are based off of the observations that have been made. This actually helps the company if we're getting people to the correct level of performance quicker, Essentially, what that means is that we're able to recoup some of the cost of training quicker, and potentially this prevents us from having new hires impact overall performance, which could cause it could cause penalties from the client if we're not hitting performance. So the goal is to reduce proficiency for new hires. And then last but not least is just being aware. So it's important to be aware of potential issues and opportunities so that you can more efficiently do your job. If you do not know how someone is performing, it's going to be very difficult to action plan, and it's going to be very difficult to coach that person right away. So always be aware of who you're getting, be part of the process, and you'll be successful. I want to take the time to thank you for listening to this and for going through this training. We hope that you enjoyed this. We hope that you got some information about how training and how production and TLs specifically play a role in training. And we really are looking forward to your success, because your success is our success. Thank you.